Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the horror romance films from 2022, titled Fresh. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens with a woman named Noah, who is scrolling through a dating app as she waits for her date to arrive. She talks with her best friend, Molly, and expresses irritation about how the guy just texted her, asking her to bring cash. Molly finds it cheap, and urges her friend not to meet him, but Noah states she's already here, and hungry as well. Shortly after, her date, Chad, arrives, and turns out to be even more off-putting in real life. During dinner, he insults her dressing sense, and even takes all the leftover food home, while making Noah pay for the meal. The man also makes racist remarks about the Chinese waitress, which further annoys Noah. After they leave the restaurant, Chad tries to get closer, but Noah politely rejects him, saying they're not compatible. This only hurts his ego, so he rudely claims she's not even his type, and calls her a stuck-up bitch, before storming off. Days later, Noah arrives at a supermarket to buy some groceries, when she runs into a handsome man named Steve, who starts chatting with her about grapes. He seems very charming, and before leaving, Steve nervously asks for her number, which Noah gives without hesitation. The next morning, Noah shares with Molly about the cute guy she met last night, but the surprising thing is that he hasn't texted her yet. Molly then jokingly says that he must be married, but Noah just laughs it off. Sometime later, Noah finally receives a text from Steve, and the two end up meeting at a bar that night. Their conversation flows easily, and Steve reveals that he is a doctor, who specializes in reconstructive surgery. He asks about Noah's family, and she reveals she's mostly alone in the world, as she has no siblings, her father passed away a while ago, and she has no idea where her mother is. The two end up having a really good time, and afterward, they arrive at Noah's place, where they begin making out. But Steve hesitates to take things further, saying it's all moving really fast, but he eventually gives in to his desires, leading them to make love. The next morning, Noah wakes up, and takes a picture of Steve while he's still sleeping. After the man leaves, Noah calls Molly to share details about the night before, and Molly asks for his Instagram ID so she can stalk him. Noah reveals that Steve doesn't use any social media, which Molly considers a major red flag. However, Noah doesn't think much of it, and reveals that Molly's ex, Paul, was their bartender the previous night. In the next scene, Noah and Steve are having dinner together, during which she asks him to try her favorite ribs, but he claims he doesn't eat animals. Steve then asks if she has told anyone about him, to which Noah replies that she has told her best friend, Molly. After some dancing and having some fun, Steve asks her if she wants to go on a trip with him somewhere, to which Noah agrees without any hesitation. The next day, Noah is packing her clothes, and calls Molly to let her know she's going on a weekend trip with Steve. However, the location is a surprise planned by Steve, which Molly finds shady, especially since Noah barely knows the guy. Molly argues that she hasn't even met him, so Noah sends her a picture of Steve sleeping, though his face isn't clearly visible. Swept off her feet, Noah doesn't think anything could go wrong, and reassures her friend that she'll be fine. Sometime later, Steve arrives to pick up Noah, but he claims that the traffic is too crazy today, and suggests staying at his place tonight and leaving tomorrow. Noah agrees, after which the couple drives away from there, and gradually leaves the city behind.
En attendant la fin de la fin du monde, je voudrais croire que l'histoire se terminera bien. Et pourtant, loin des kilomètres à la ronde, dans le trou noir y'a rien à voir, ça va, ça vient.
After hours of driving, they arrive at his house, which turns out to be in a secluded location in the middle of the woods. Upon entering the house, Noah realizes there's no cell service, and asks for the Wi-Fi password, but Steve simply ignores her. He then offers her a cocktail, and while drinking, Noah comments that his house is so fancy that she feels humble compared to him. But Steve says that's what he likes about her, since she doesn't pretend to be something she's not. And then all of a sudden,
Noah, look at me.
What? Sorry.
Why are you sitting so far away? Come here.
The movie takes a dark turn when Noah feels dizzy, and she eventually passes out. Sometime later, Noah finally regains consciousness, and finds Steve sitting in the corner of the room, creepily staring at her. She asks what happened, and the man reveals that he drugged her. Noah thinks he's joking at first, but her eyes widen in horror when she notices that her hands have been chained to the floor. The terrified woman begins to panic and cry, but Steve yells at her to shut up, and orders her to stay calm. In a horrifying twist, he tells her that he's going to sell her meat, as people apparently pay a lot of money for it. But since the fresher the meat, the better, he's not going to kill her right away, and intends to keep her alive for as long as possible. A terrified Noah tries to attack him, but the psycho man overpowers her, and tells her to stop being so dramatic. Back in the city, Molly starts to become worried since her best friend hasn't reached out after leaving for the trip. Soon, she receives a text from Noah saying they're at a place called Cottage Grove, where service isn't great, and she even receives a picture of a waterfall. Back in captivity, Noah frantically tries to free herself from the chains and screams, right when a woman from the next room speaks to her. She introduces herself as Penny, revealing that she is also a captive here, and is slowly being eaten. A frantic Noah asks how long she has been here, but Penny admits she's lost track of time. Noah says Penny's family and close friends must be looking for her, but Penny reveals she has no one, just like Noah. Next, Penny talks about another captive named Melissa, who has been here for the longest, and is slowly losing her mind. Elsewhere, Molly is chatting with the supposed Noah, but soon realizes something fishy is going on. She decides to reverse search the image of the waterfall sent by Noah, and is shocked to discover that it was stolen from a website. In another scene, Steve seems to take grim pleasure in his work. He is seen dancing around while cutting a woman's thigh, which seems to be Melissa's. He then packs the meat into sealed bags, and prepares several boxes of meat, which include the woman's personal belongings as well. Shortly after, a delivery person arrives to pick up the order, and the satanic symbol on the boxes suggests it is part of a wider cult network. Afterward, Steve approaches Noah with some food, but she refuses to eat, and says she needs a shower. Steve then releases her chains, and tells her to be good, before leading her to the bathroom. But then, on the way, Steve easily overpowers her, and knocks her unconscious. Sometime later, Noah wakes up dizzy, and paralyzed on an operating table, so Steve coldly reveals that he administered an epidural, and he's cutting off her buttocks. Noah begs him to stop, but he states that this is her punishment and proceeds to brutally mutilate her. Back in the city, Molly arrives to see her ex-boyfriend, Paul, who was the bartender on Steve and Noah's first date. She shares her worry that her friend might be in danger, and asks for Steve's information, since he must have used his credit card to pay. Paul is hesitant, as he could lose his job, but when Molly charms him, he finally agrees to help. In another scene, we see Noah crawling painfully on the floor after having her buttocks cut off. She talks with Penny, and admits how disgusted she feels that she slept with Steve, which leaves the other woman shocked. Penny reveals that she didn't sleep with Steve, and neither did any of the girls before her, which means that Noah must be somewhat special to him. Returning to Molly, she finally receives information about Steve from Paul, and it turns out his full name is Brendan Steve Kemp. She searches for his social media, and soon finds a Facebook profile for someone named Ann Kemp. Shockingly, Ann turns out to be Steve's wife, and they even have 2 children together. Molly also finds their home address on the profile, so the next day, she shows up there, and even shares this information with Paul. Elsewhere, we see Noah reading a magazine to pass the time when Steve approaches her with some cherries. She asks him why she slept with him, and he responds that it was because he genuinely liked her. Before leaving, he warns her not to stress or fear, since it affects the quality of the meat. Later, Noah continues to flip through the magazine mindlessly, when she comes across a surprising note that says if anyone is reading this magazine, then Steve must really like her, so she must use that against him and keep fighting. A stunned Noah tries to speak with Penny, but the poor woman has had multiple body parts mutilated, and is far too weak to respond. Penny says she has given up since she no longer knows who she is anymore, but Noah urges her to stay strong. Meanwhile, in the city, Molly sends Paul her live location in case things go wrong, before ringing the doorbell of Steve's real house. She is greeted by Anne, and Molly explains that she is here to talk about her friend Noah, who is seeing Anne's husband, leaving the woman shocked. Back in captivity, Steve arrives to check on Noah, who seems calmer this time. She then asks how human meat tastes, and Steve is stunned by this question. He responds that it depends on where it comes from and how it's prepared, but if done right, it can taste exquisite. In another scene, Molly shows Anne the picture of Steve sleeping, but it isn't very clear. Anne says she isn't sure it's her husband, and urges Molly to go to the police if she's worried about her friend. Just then, Steve returns home, before introducing himself to Molly as Brendan. Molly asks about her friend Noah, but he claims he has no idea who she is, so she apologizes for the trouble. But before leaving, she calls Noah's phone, and it starts ringing from Steve's pocket. Before a horrified Molly can react, Anne knocks her unconscious, revealing that she is also involved in this criminal operation. Elsewhere, Paul tries to contact Molly, but his messages suddenly stop being delivered. Meanwhile, Steve takes Molly to his slaughterhouse so he can use her as meat as well. Later, Steve approaches Noah, and asks why she asked him about the taste of human meat, to which she responds that she was just curious. Steve then invites her to have dinner with him, and says he has brought clothes for her to change into. Elsewhere, Paul checks Molly's life location, but it has been turned off, which leaves him worried. When Steve returns home, he informs his wife that he's going to be late tomorrow because of work, and thanks her for the teamwork today. And then goes to take a shower, where we shockingly see that she has a prosthetic leg, implying that she was also a victim of Steve in the past. The next evening, we see Steve and Noah having dinner together, while she is still tied to chains. She then asks about his story, and he reveals that when he was around 19, he had his first taste of human meat, and found that he couldn't get it out of his mind. He eventually found like-minded people, and it turns out there are a bunch of wealthy individuals who crave things no one else can get. Steve then gives Noah some human meat to try, and she reluctantly takes a bite, even though she feels disgusted inside. Steve reveals that the meal was worth 30 grand, and it is from someone named Hope. After dinner, Steve locks Noah in her room once again, and before leaving, he tells her that he likes her because she's messed up like him. He then takes Molly to the operating room to cut her body parts, while Noah vomits up everything she ate. Penny also tells her that a new girl might have arrived, as the screaming they heard earlier didn't sound like Melissa. The next evening, we see that Steve has started to soften toward Noah, as he gives her a pink dress, and invites her to have dinner with him once again. He then heads to another room, and carefully gets ready, while ignoring his wife's texts and calls. Later, we see Steve and Noah having dinner in a romantic setting. They share a human liver together, and Steve reveals that it is from Melissa, which implies that she is dead. Noah is deeply disturbed by this, but she has no choice but to act like it doesn't bother her. Following this, Steve shows Noah a secret shelf hidden behind a painting in the living room. The shelf contains the belongings of all the victims he has captured so far, leaving Noah stunned with horror. She doesn't see her stuff and asks where they are, to which Steve responds that they're with him. Her eyes are then drawn to the victim's phone stacked at the bottom, where she is stunned to see Molly's phone as well. Next, the two return to the table, where they make cheesy jokes and laugh while enjoying the meal. But Noah suddenly begins crying, and Steve comforts her, after which they kiss. After some romantic dancing, they make out, and move to the bedroom to get intimate. During this, Noah excuses herself briefly to the restroom, before returning to the bed. But then, in a shocking twist, she bites his genitals hard, and rubs toothpaste into his eyes. She immediately grabs her phone and the house keys, and frees herself from handcuffs, before locking him in the room. Following this, Noah goes downstairs, where she frees both Molly and Penny, but by this time, Steve has managed to escape the room. The three women hold each other and try to flee, but Penny is missing a limb and slows them down. Upstairs, Steve notices the dumbwaiter approaching, right when Penny comes out of it to attack him, and the other two also sneak up. However, despite the three of them ganging up on him, the man proves too strong and overpowers them. At one point, he pins Noah to the ground and is about to kill her, but Penny stabs him in the leg. Regardless, he continues attacking both Penny and Noah. And then this happens. Following this, the girls grab their phones from the shelf and proceed to leave. Outside, Paul also arrives after tracking Molly's last known location, but he finds the isolated house very creepy and hesitates to enter. The women, on the other hand, run into the nearby woods, while Steve once again gets up and begins shouting for Noah. He accuses her of lying to him, and even fires a gunshot, which Paul hears from the distance. Panicked, he decides to drive away from the area, since he doesn't want to play the hero and risk losing his life. Shortly after, Anne arrives at the house with a henchman, and is stunned to see the place in a mess. Outside, Steve fires several random shots, while the three girls hide behind trees in the woods. Seizing the perfect moment, they all jump on him, and begin viciously attacking him. Noah then picks up his gun, and eventually shoots him in the head, ending his pathetic life. However, the next problem is that they're in the middle of nowhere, with no way to seek help. The girls don't have any signal on their phones, while Noah realizes she left hers in the woods and decides to go back for it. Meanwhile, Anne discovers her husband's lifeless body in the woods, but she doesn't seem shocked or upset. She calmly orders her henchman to take the body inside and put it on ice. Elsewhere, Noah finally finds her phone in the woods, but then, Anne approaches her, pretending to be another victim and thanking her for killing Steve. Anne suddenly pushes her to the ground and starts choking her, which Molly hears in the distance. Noah is almost killed by the deranged woman, but at the last moment, she stabs Anne in the neck with the house keys. Despite the injury, Anne gets up quickly and tries to murder Noah, right when Molly arrives to save the day, and repeatedly smashes Anne's face until the woman eventually dies. In the aftermath, Noah and Molly rest against a tree, during which the two friends express their love for each other. The movie then comes to an end as Noah finally gets a signal and receives a text from the garbage guy, Chad, asking if she's awake. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.